Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. Officers of the Central Bureau of Investigation on Monday raided the residence of senior journalist and co-founder of listed broadcaster NDTV, Prannoy Roy, and other premises linked to the organization. The investigation agency has registered a case against Roy, his wife and NDTV co-promoter Radhika Roy, their private firm RRPR Holdings and NDTV India. The first information report also mentions unnamed ICICI Bank officials among the suspects. The raid by the CBI has its roots in a series of loans the Roys took starting in 2008 because they wanted to buy back a large chunk of NDTV shares from the market. The FIR, which has alleged criminal conspiracy and invoked Prevention of Corruption Act, was based on a complaint by Quantum Securities, a firm run by Delhi-based stockbroker and NDTV shareholder Sanjay Dutt. Dutt, who once shared a close relationship with the Roys, had lodged several complaints against NDTV and its promoters with various agencies, including the Securities and Exchange Board of India and the Income Tax Department. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze if the CBI raid on NDTV is justified or an attack on the media. Joining me on the program today are Ashok Tandon, senior journalist, Biswajit Bhattacharya, senior advocate of the Supreme Court, Siddharth Varadarajan, founding editor, TheWire.in, and Rakesh Batabyal, associate professor, JNU. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Mr. Tandon, I'd like to start with you, of course, and get your opening remarks on everything that has happened. The media has extensively covered this entire story all through Monday. You know, there were reports today as well. As a senior journalist, what do you think about the matter?
See, first of all, let's understand that the media highlights all such events, whether it's a raid against a bureaucrat, an official, a politician, or a corporate house. So I won't blame the media for highlighting such events because that's the job of the media. Now, the introduction which you are giving just now, it appeared more like a corporate event rather than a raid on a media house, because most of the media houses today are corporates. They are in trade, they are in commerce, some of them are in mining, some of them, therefore, because there is a raid, we should not jump to the conclusion that it is an infringement of the freedom of the press or it's muzzling the press, because most media houses, they are indulging in commercial activity as well. So if there is any wrongdoing on the commercial side of their activity, then I think we should allow the law to take its own course rather than make it a media versus the government case. Because see, in most cases, when something happens, there is a demand for a CBI inquiry. And when CBI conducts some inquiry and we try to jump to a conclusion that it is a government-sponsored raid or a case. Now, recently in the Babri Masjid case, the same CBI has moved the Supreme Court against the party's own top brass. And therefore, whether we should have confidence and faith in the CBI, if we don't have, then why everybody demands a CBI inquiry in this country? So I think to jump to a conclusion just because it's a raid or an investigation against a media house, that it is an infringement of the media or is an attack on the freedom of the press, I think it will be too early to judge because all the facts are still not known.
Sure. So what you're trying to say is if you've not done anything wrong, then it will all come out in the public domain and there's nothing to worry about.
And that applies to everybody.
Fair enough.
Unfortunately, in this country, whenever there is a raid, there is a media trial. And many people have suffered because of the trial by the media. And here is a case where media itself is under trial or under investigation. And now, because I'm also a journalist, I believe in freedom of the press. But just because we are a journalist, we should not be, then in that case, if there is raid against Mayawati, the entire political spectrum should come to her rescue. And if there is raid against a bureaucrat, the Bureaucrats Association should condemn it. So I think we will have to see the whole thing in totality, not making it an isolated case of the freedom of the press.
Fair enough. Professor, do you buy that argument that is being given by, it's just another case? It's just because a media house is involved, the other medias have hyped it up. There is no need to hype up this issue. Take it on the face value of it. Something must have gone wrong. That's why the CBI has taken cognizance of the matter and is investigating into it.
I think Mr. Tandon is actually indicating a far more serious, as I could make out. What he is arguing, and I partly agree, in the sense that in the case where a media house, which a media is, in some sense, we have given to the media a kind of a position of upholder of the truth. In that sense, media should be holier than most of us. In that sense, it has a probity, a quotient of probity much more higher. That's why it should retain it. So why should we charge, if something is charged against it, why should we make a big case about it? Let the truth come out of it. So this is what he has been making, he's trying to indicate. I think that is, everyone will agree to that case. In this case, what seems to me, or maybe not just this case, it has happened in the past also. We had Dalmia been in jail. No, so we had instances where the state and the government in direct collusion, collusion with the press. Now, what seems to me is the case that once a media house or media owners are attacked or raided, or whatever word you can use, in that sense, we should do it in such a manner. I think manner has to be discussed by the larger society in such a manner that the media house, media cannot come out and say that we are attacked because of we are media, not because of the lack of probity. So we should, therefore, the king should be seen as just, not just be doing just work. In this sense also, the not just a raid and the manner it was done, when you try and counter or try to bring in police action, ED raid, CBI raid, whatever you do on a media house, because media is supposed to be upholder of the truth of the society and a mirror to the power. At that point, one has to be, the process has to be such that the media, if they are indulge in wrongdoing, they should not escape by having a mask of being media, and the other way around. Therefore, I think the process in which the process through which all these things are happening today in the larger melee seems to be not in place. We should be slightly much more open, transparent. Not just, I'm not talking about the rise or media's out, but the state and the government, the way it conducts, it should be something much more than just a raid by CBI, because you are actually attacking the credibility of not the NDTV per se, but media as such, because then we are saying that media is just another corporate house, as Mr. Tandon was pointing out, which it is not. Media is not just a corporate house. It is something much more. It gives me a face, a mirror, a truth to the power, which I personally quite often don't do. But media does it for me. In that sense, the larger civil society has to uphold.
Even Tandon will agree with what you're saying. With Mr. Tandon,
that's what I'm saying.
With what you're saying. You know, yeah, that's true. The media is supposed to be like that. But he says, unfortunately, the media is not like that today. They have turned into corporate houses, and that's why they should be treated like that. Let's take the discussion forward any which ways. Mr. Bhattacharya, as a lawyer, as someone who's seen things like this in the past, would you believe, or would you say that, you know, the CBI raid is justified?
See, CBI is within its jurisdiction to raid, but in my view, that's not the issue. Whatever press reports have come, 48 crore alleged loss to ICICI Bank and corresponding gains to the promoters of NDTV. The FIR says that there is a criminal conspiracy under the Indian Penal Code and cheating. The first question I would like to raise is, if the promoters of NDTV have been investigated or they have been raided, searched, the highest functionaries of ICICI Bank cannot escape. Otherwise, it will look incongruous if Central Bureau of Investigation charges that ICICI Bank and NDTV have entered into a criminal conspiracy ostensibly to incur a loss of 48 crores of rupees. Then ICICI Bank top brass and not merely the operating officer cannot escape. Now, my question is, in India today, in banking portfolio, the total advances are of the order of 80 lakh crores of rupees, out of which the toxic loans have become almost 12 lakh crores of rupees. Now, if CBI has to target 48 crore of rupees and enter into house, well, law has to take its own course. Then what about those huge corporates which have gone bad? Will CBI file a first information report against all such cases? I think media is not the issue. The issue is, had this case not been for a media, whether CBI would have swung into action. I am raising a question.
Yes.
Whether an ordinary 48 crore rupees allegedly lost, a loan, a transaction which is 8 years old, repaid ostensibly in the year 2009, 23rd of October 2000, whatever press report has come, I have no personal information.
Yes.
So it is a little curious that Central Bureau of Investigation, whose track record has not always inspired confidence. The former Chief Justice of India of the Supreme Court had also at one stage made, remarks which were not very charitable towards the Central Bureau of Investigation. Now, some of the recent directors of the Central Bureau of Investigation have not acquitted themselves well. Under these circumstances, I would implore upon the Central Bureau of Investigation to do some soul searching.
Sure.
To do some soul searching whether in all these cases they are equipped to analyze these commercial transactions. 8 years the transaction was concluded. What about what the basic auditors were doing, statutory auditors, Reserve Bank of India, auditors, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. I mean, so many agencies were involved. Bank audit, the management, the board of the bank. I personally feel that although the law of the land has to take its own course, but this particular transaction raises and will raise in future for the health of the banking industry and for taking a bona fide decision. Mind you, this was a one-time settlement under the scheme of Reserve Bank of India.
Yes.
Now, you are borrowing 500 crores from India Bulls, then you are basically repaying to ICICI Bank 350 crores. Now, who raises the funds? One company X is the source, he gives it to Y, Z, X. And then ultimately there is a coupon rate of 19% or 10% or 0%. Now, is this a matter of criminal conspiracy? Whatever little criminal law I have learned, I think Central Bureau of Investigation, I am not saying central government is involved in it, I am not saying that. Central Bureau of Investigation is an independent entity. They are supposed to be independent entity. And I know it for sure. Now, it is headed by a director who is at least perceived to be clean.
Yes.
So, at least the Central Bureau of Investigation director should not go by. There are a lot of dishonest elements also within the Central Bureau of Investigation. Okay, it's time for the country to call the bluff among the dishonest elements in the Central Bureau of Investigation also.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. There's a lot of merit in what you have to say, but a lot of what you're saying also can be discussed on another program maybe, but let's stick to the point now and let's stick to the topic. Let's bring in Siddharth Varadarajan, who's joining us on the program as well. Siddharth, there's a lot of merit in what Biswajit Bhattacharya just said, but according to you, what do you believe prompted the CBI to go ahead with this raid?
You see, in the light of what Biswajit has said, there is no reason for me to provide any argument about the fact that the raid against NDTV's owners and its offices stinks to high heaven. It's malified. The fact is that of all there are two observations. Of all the media organizations that, or of all the companies that may have committed improprieties of one kind or the other, why is it that a media company is raided? And of all the media companies that have skeletons in the closet, why is it that NDTV is the one that gets raided? I think this is a question everybody needs to ask. The fact is that governments have all kinds of powers at their disposal, and they can unleash agencies, and they have done so in the past, essentially to put an end to coverage, to put an end to an editorial perspective that they don't approve of. I have seen, we saw this, Mr. Tandon is sitting here, he will remember the time when the previous NDA government went after the promoters of Tehelka, which was then a website. Soon after, it had exposed corruption within the ranks of the BJP. The BJP's president was caught on camera saying, give me dollar, to people posing as arms traders. And we saw what happened eventually. The enforcement directorate was unleashed on the promoters of Tehelka, and they were embroiled in investigations, and at the end of it, they had to withdraw, and Tehelka was shut down. I myself am witness to what was a brazen attempt to intimidate the Times of India, again during the NDA 1 period, when we ran a series of stories exposing how the Urban Development Ministry, which was then headed by Anand Kumar, was handing out prime parcels of land on Rouse Avenue, on Deen Dayal Upadhyay Marg, to a whole bunch of RSS front organizations. And we ran 2 or 3 days, we ran these stories, and on the 4th day, the municipal authorities of Delhi, NDMC, whoever had issued the lease to the Times of India's building on Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg, sent an eviction notice pointing to violations of building bylaws going back for the last 40 years that obviously Times of India must have committed, and lots of other media houses and companies must have done. And this notice was delivered on at 5 o'clock on a Friday, and the Times of India is told to give the NDMC vacant possession of the building at 10 a.m. on Monday.
Right.
It was a clear act of intimidation, and unfortunately one that the management succumbed to, because we were then given instructions not to cover any more what Anand Kumar and the Urban Development Ministry had done. So there's lots of examples of this when governments have used the investigative agencies under their control to bully, browbeat media organizations. So this doesn't surprise me. NDTV has already been targeted once earlier this year when an attempt was made to ban its Hindi channel for a day because the government said that it violated the rules covering counter-terrorist operations.
Right.
All of us saw those videos, all of us saw those reports. There was nothing that NDTV India telecast which the other channels didn't. But the government went after that channel, went after that company, because it is the one channel that does not adopt the same kind of breathless celebratory tone in covering this government and its accomplishments as the other channels do. So there is no mystery in my mind about why this investigation has suddenly taken this dimension, taken this turn. By all means, if there is an allegation of crime, investigate, probe, raid. But we know that in this country, these kinds of decisions, these kinds of acts, the process is the punishment. Eventually, of course, NDTV, I'm confident NDTV and the Roys will clear their name.
Okay.
But after being dragged through several years of wasted time, endless litigation, that unfortunately is the reality of the criminal investigation process in this country, that you can waste many years of an innocent person, or in harassing them, in embroiling them in cases. Eventually they get off, because I have full faith in the higher echelons of the Indian judiciary that they will do the right thing.
Sure.
But in the process, you have subjected somebody to years of harassment, and it's very clear that this is the message that the government is trying to send out, which is why it's important that all media organizations and journalists and editors recognize what is happening and take a strong stand against it.
Fair enough. Mr. Tandon, would you agree with that? This has happened in the past. The history is repeating itself in this particular case as well, and there is more to it than meets the eye, is what several of the other panelists are saying.
See, in every regime, such allegations are made about the investigating agencies. There is nothing new about it, and whosoever is in power, the other side will accuse the incumbent regime of misusing the investigating agencies. So then there is no end to it if you go into the history of what happened during the 10 years of UPA regime. But I don't want to argue on that, because this is a common allegation which has been made over the years. But the surprising part of the story is that even if the credibility of the CBI is low, there is always a demand for a CBI inquiry. Why? Now, if we journalists, me and Siddharth, would obviously defend the media, but will we come to the rescue of those bureaucrats or politicians when they are charged or raided by the CBI? Then we, the journalists and the media, would accuse them. and their own organizations like the chambers will not come to the rescue of the big corporate houses, nor will any association of the bureaucrats will come to the rescue of a bureaucrat if he is being raided. And we, me and Siddharth and the entire media, we do the media trial, hang that bureaucrat before he is convicted. As Siddharth was saying, the Roys will come out clean. Well, the same should apply to everybody in this country. But unfortunately, we in the media believe in a media trial of people other than the media. So there should not be any discrimination. We know for certain many bureaucrats have come out clean. Even many politicians have come out clean. All of them have not been hanged. So why should we be so touchy about when our own people are being targeted? Just because we are from the media, so we should have solidarity with the media house, even if it is indulging in a commercial activity. As I said earlier, tell me, Mr. Siddharth, which media house is just a media house?
He's responding to you.
Media houses now are in mining, they are in trade, they are in real estate, and they have, all of them have skeleton in their cupboard, as Siddharth is saying. But what happens when they are attacked?
I have a shortage of time on the program, so let him respond to what you're saying. Go ahead, Siddharth.
Yeah, I think he raises an important point about the role of the CBI. Now, the CBI, when it is handling a case which is devoid of political dimensions, generally acts in a manner that is far more professional than the police forces or investigative agencies that exist at the state level, at the provincial level, right? So I think that's why people often make this demand of a CBI probe when you're dealing with a case that does not have political dimensions or political ramifications. Or sometimes there's a feeling that the politician-police nexus at the state level is so strong that you need the CBI at the central level to somehow break through this. But what we're talking about is cases where there are political dimensions, and nobody can deny you look at the Babri Masjid case itself that Ashok ji mentioned. The CBI changed its line 2 or 3 times in the course of 20 years, depending on which regime was in power. And even the current case, I should remind Mr. Tandon and your viewers, the current case where finally the Supreme Court has cleared the prosecution of Mr. Advani and other senior BJP leaders, was taken by the Supreme Court on the basis of an appeal, a prayer that the CBI had filed many years ago before the Modi government came in. So the fact of the matter is that the CBI couldn't then withdraw that prayer.
Right.
Maybe if given a chance, they would like to have done that. But you know, it's when the CBI is dealing with cases that have a political dimension that the allegation of bias not only applies but often sticks. And there are loads of cases where the CBI compromises itself in this manner.
I'm short of time, so I'm going to get closing comments from my other two guests who have not had much to say on the program. You know, Mr. Bhattacharya, as far as the CBI is concerned, can it act really on a personal complaint, as was the case in this particular case?
CBI has full discretion to proceed in accordance with law. Now, you see, I am not questioning the jurisdiction of the CBI. I am just a little curious and surprised that this is purely a commercial transaction, a concluded transaction. An allegation is 48 crores of bank's loss. Bank has not complained. Now they are leveling a criminal conspiracy between the two. So ultimately, bank top brass will have to get involved. And you know, if a charge sheet is filed, I mean, you can't expect the chairman of the bank who had sanctioned the loan to face trial now. I mean, this will set a very dangerous precedent for a sum of 48 crores. Otherwise, you will have to drag every chairman of every bank and every borrower, every chief executive to face trial at some stage.
Professor, close the show for us with your closing
and then basically be acquitted. CBI
very quickly, because I'm completely out of time.
Issues.
Sorry to cut you short, but I'm completely out of time.
Media is a reflection of society and politics at that point of time. Today, what the politics is indicating is a politics of vendetta. In that sense, this case should be seen, because it's not just about NDTV. It could be about any other area. All the opposition leaders are attacked. So there could not be just multiple narratives happening. There could be just one narrative, and that is vendetta. If that is vendetta in the larger philosophical sense, now then the king, the ruler, must come out clean that it is not vendetta. And therefore, this order of CBI inquiry could not have come from a lower level. It must have come from very high in the authority, and they should come out. And so, but they will not come out because this is part of the larger narrative, which is vendetta.
Okay, on that note, we'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program. That's all the time we have today. See you again next time.